And welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning. So happy to welcome back Edie Bowman. You know her as a local playwright, phenom, and so happy to have you back, Edie. Thanks for being here. So I hear from you, and you say it's that time of year again. I've got a Christmas show coming up, but this one's a little different, isn't it?
It's very different than my usual. I usually focus on a play, and it's usually about an hour and a half to 2 hours. But this year it's very different in that we have singers, dancers, performance artists, pianists, skits, comedy. So it's kind of like a variety show, but it's all focused around Christmas, of course. So.
You know what? Growing up, and you're too young, I'm sure, to remember this, but growing up, there used to be these kinds of shows on TV all the time. At Christmas time, there'd be, you know, Perry Como and Bing Crosby, and they'd have funny little skits, and they'd have lots of singing and dancing and so forth. That variety show was it. And at Christmas time, there were tons of them. Andy Williams was another one. Wow. This seems to be something that you have brought back now to our area. A bit of nostalgia for those of us of a certain age. It's really exciting to think that we'd be able to see something like Perry Como, Andy Williams, and, you know, Bing Crosby.
I know a little bit about them.
Okay.
I did watch them when I got a little older. I was born in 1973, so later, in my later years, I still could see some of those shows.
Reruns or something?
Yes, reruns, and even Carol Burnett show.
Oh, love that.
Was it Lawrence Welk?
Yes.
Different shows I remember seeing.
We can find them still on YouTube when we really, really want to. Or you can go live Saturday, December 21st to Lions Lincoln Theater from 7 to 9. So, Edie, tell me more let's talk about this show. Who is going to be performing?
Well, one of my favorite artists, she's a recording artist, and her name is Melanie Robinson, and she is going to perform an original called Savior. So she wrote this song, and it focuses on who God is, the King of the world. The lyrics say He's God Almighty, Redeemer, Giver of life, Prince of Peace. So it's very fitting for the Christmas season. So I'm excited. And we have a lot of dancers. One of them, her name is Stacy Morgan, and she has her own company called Ordered Steps Dance Company, and she works with area youth in an enrichment program, and she teaches them to dance. So her whole group will be there. I'm so excited for that.
Awesome.
Yeah, and we even have a young lady. She's 11 years old named Raylyn Klein, and she's from Extreme Dance Force. So she's trained in dancing. And a young man that grew up with one of my daughters named James Campbell, he's been studying piano for 10 years. He's 17 years old and goes to Timken Early College. He's going to perform one of my favorite pieces, Carol of the Bells. So that's going to be awesome.
Yes.
And another thing I'm excited about that I've never seen live is a performance artist. Her name is Ursula Messina from Akron, Ohio. She's going to paint to music.
Oh, my goodness.
And so you don't know what it's going to be until the very end. And then she's going to have an opportunity to sell it at the end of the show.
Right there.
Yes. So
that is amazing to see. Yes. I have gotten to see that,
really?
And it is remarkable.
Wow.
So right there, there'll be music, and she will be painting just as she's inspired to paint something.
Yes.
And then somebody can take home a still wet painting.
Yes. Yeah, we'll either do it through silent auction or just at the end.
Yes. Maybe let it dry before before they put it in the car and drive home with it. You don't want to smudge it.
Yes.
But oh my goodness. So and exciting. Her name again is?
Her name is Ursula Messina.
So you might be able to Google that name, look her up, and see some of her work and see how fabulous. What an awesome opportunity. What made you go this direction this time, Edie?
Actually, I was going to do something else, and it kind of fell through. And I like to at least do one thing a year to keep it going and my name out there and everything. And I thought, what can I do at the last moment that would be different and easier to put together? I thought.
Are you finding it to be that way?
It wasn't quite as easy, as I thought it would be.
Lots of moving parts,
yes,
right?
And I'm working with musicians, which I'm not used to working with a lot of musicians.
Yes.
So it's very different because they do their own thing. And I'm not really hands-on.
You're used to being the director of actors.
Yes.
That would be different.
Yes.
But still, you're sort of the orchestrator of the whole thing.
Yes, pulling it all together, bringing it to one theme. But there will be skits in the show because everyone is still going, oh,
yeah, because Edie's involved. There's got to be.
Yes.
I want to get into the fact that you are Into the Light Productions.
Yes.
For people who are new in town, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I came up with that name because I think of how we're all in different stages of our lives. Sometimes we're in darkness about a lot of different things in our life. And the word into is like a process. So I like that word into. Mm-hmm. You're coming into the light. You're getting more knowledge about things in your life, things you didn't know that keeps you in darkness, just not understanding or having knowledge of things. Mm-hmm. So I like the word into the light.
It has movement.
And it brings hope. Yes, it has movement and it brings hope in dark places, I like to say.
Nice. Yes. Very nice. So most of the time that means that you are presenting some kind of a play. Tell us what plays you have produced in the past.
My first one to the community was called The Courtroom, and it was a play that showed something kind of dark. It was a drama, a courtroom drama, right on the stage, and it was about a young lady who committed a murder of a man who harmed her daughter, and she stood, before the court, and they found her guilty. But then a man who was a gracious man came in at the end of the production and said, I'll take her place.
Oh, what a nice analogy.
And it's a story of grace, yes. God's grace and mercy, no matter what we've done. When he comes into the picture, we're forgiven through his grace and his love.
Jesus taking our place.
Yes.
Oh, that's nice. But when I see you, I think comedy. That seems very serious for something coming from
that
you.
That was serious, but then I have another extreme side, really crazy extreme side.
Yes.
And I did a Good Like Medicine a couple years ago. And it was kind of like a Saturday Night Live, but it was family oriented. Anyone could come.
Yes.
So, and it was a lot of skits that were just bizarre, just crazy skits. And some of them had a message in them. And then some of them were just pure laughter, just to laugh and have joy and a fun evening. So I love doing that. I'm going to do another one.
Good. The reaction to your productions has been what so far?
Oh, my gosh. What comes to my mind when you ask that is that I've had a person come up to me before that said that they were dealing with cancer in their body and was going through like chemo and everything. She came to the Good Like Medicine. And I was backstage, and I could hear the audience laughing for a long time, even though the skit was done and they were behind stage.
Wow.
So we were going, why is people still laughing? I found out the next day that this lady laughed so hard and so long that the audience were looking at her and going, what is she doing? And they started laughing, and she had to excuse herself. She was laughing so hard, and she found me and called me the next day and said it just brung, like, it felt like healing was going through her body. And she said she could not laugh. She could not stop laughing. That gives me joy that, you're thinking this is just a funny night, but laughter's good like medicine.
And it was like
made her
medicine.
Feel a lot better going through that. So that was a blessing.
Well, that's a good way to segue into the fact that you've got some skits in this one as well. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, they're mainly comedic, but I have one serious one, I would say, because when we think about the Christmas season, it's about joy, it's about peace, it's about Christ coming to save us from our sin. But a lot of times people are not happy during this season. They don't feel joy because they've lost someone, or maybe they're lonely, or have bad memories or something. So there is a skit particularly in there that deals with that, to bring people hope and to just make it known that sometimes people struggle in this season, but there is joy that can be found, and there is hope. So that's one of the skits. Another skit is about an elf, I will say a female elf, who's really bizarre and really crazy, and it'll just make you crack up with no purpose at all. It's just to laugh.
Just to laugh.
And the three other skits are comedic, and they also have like a message in there about the true meaning of Christmas.
Where do you get your ideas?
Every day of my life, almost, when I'm around someone, I can be in a line at Starbucks or something, and I'll hear a conversation behind me. Somebody can say one sentence and I'll go, that would be a good skit. Like already in my phone, I have about 70 skits written in my phone for the next Good Like Medicine. Just from everyday conversation, meeting people, hearing someone say one word or one phrase. It's overwhelming sometimes. I instantly see word pictures. And I jot them down, and all I have to do is write one sentence, and it'll come right back when I'm ready to fully write it out.
So be careful when you're in Starbucks. Look around, make sure you're not standing in front of Edie Bowman.
Yes.
Because otherwise you are going to be the subject of a skit.
Yes, you very well could be.
It just is really cool that God's given you this gift.
I love it. I love communicating with people. I love meeting people. I love stories, hearing them and telling them and portraying them, that someone may be blessed or encouraged or get some joy out of it. I just love it.
I love talking to writers because to know your process. Are you one that says, okay, I'm going to be diligent about setting aside a certain amount of time every day and get to this? Or do you wait till the Spirit moves you? How do you do it?
The funny thing is I start out like that. I'll go, in the summer, it's a little easier. And I'll go, I'm going to do this 4 hours a day. It never works out. I try, and it never works out. I may go a whole month. I know that sounds horrible, but I may go a whole month and I just go, something comes to my mind, and I will sit there for hours and write so many pages.
Once you're in the zone, then nothing else, laundry can go undone, right? Because you're in the zone.
Yes, and I can't stop until I feel the release that I'm done with that story or that part of the play or something like that. So I tried the process. In college, we had to do that process, and I stuck with it because you had to turn in so many pages weekly. So I had to stick with it, and that's what you're supposed to do. But it just doesn't work for me, so I've just embraced it, that I'll have to write when I feel the moment.
It's kind of fun to just go with the flow because it seems to come out more naturally. It's almost like spilling out of you, pouring out of you.
Yes.
Have you ever done that, then lost it, and tried to recreate that through a disciplined time? Like, ooh, what did I say there? It's not the same.
It's not. There's been times where I heard something when I was out and about, and I was like, and I'll just write one sentence down, and I'll get back home, and I'll remember, the meat of it, but then after I start writing, I just lose where it's going, and so I'll just put it to the side in my little book I have. That I carry a book all the time, and then get back to it later, and it might come back later.
Yes.
And if it doesn't come back, I just let it go and say, well, maybe another time.
And sometimes we start with the end in mind. Like if you know where you're going and then back it up and then get there again.
Exactly.
It's kind of fun to do as well.
That is fun. I want to write with freedom. This might be off subject, but I'm writing my first book I've never written a book, and I'm starting that.
Good for you.
And it's really whatever I feel at that moment or for that day, I sit down and write it, whether it's a poem, a short story, just a pithy thought, whatever. I just write it. It could be funny at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'll sit down and write something hilarious. 2 hours later, it could be a moment where I feel some sadness or grief about something that happened, and I'll write it down.
This sounds like an interesting book if it contains all these kinds of things. What kind of a book is this? Just your thoughts?
I'm having trouble with the title because it's all kind of thoughts and feelings and things that we have that sometimes we don't want to even express.
Almost like a devotional? Almost?
Kind of, just in a more artsy type, poetic way, because to be honest, we have all kind of different thoughts.
Sure.
And I'm learning from just meeting different people that sometimes they don't feel comfortable sharing them because they feel like, oh, it's not, spiritual, or it's not happy, or it's not, deep or funny or make me feel good, but it's real and it's there. So it's cathartic for me to write it out on paper. And then I thought, well, maybe other people go through these, type of emotions or
very interesting
like that. So it's very uncomfortable, to tell you the truth, the book, but I feel like I'm supposed to write it. So right now I'll get in a moment and I'll just jot it down, whether I think it sounds crazy, quirky, or, whatever. I'm just writing it down.
That's right.
Yeah,
You'll
it's
know
very
what to do
different.
with it.
Yeah.
Wow, very interesting. Well, I'm looking at the clock. Yikes. I figured our time would fly. We do need to take a short break. We're speaking with Edie Bowman. She is putting on the Christmas Spectacular Saturday, December 21st at Lions Lincoln Theater in Massillon. We'll be back with Edie after these words. You're listening to Our Community.